The Steam controller is just a Steam Deck's controller portion, but slammed together into a compact controller. It's the same layout arranged in a similar way. The Steam Deck is extremely ergonomic, especially for something so large. Having all of these inputs at the top forces your grip to be arranged in a more comfortable way, whether you're using the D-pad or the thumbsticks or whatever. The Steam controller does essentially the same thing. It doesn't feel as big as it looks. It's actually very comfortable to hold. I do have big hands, and I do think that that is a requirement for this controller. It forces your grip to be focused right in the top middle, right on those thumbsticks. And your thumbs have the full range of motion for everything. Yes, even the trackpads. Oh, the trackpads. The first thing everyone looks at when they first see this thing. They do draw a lot of attention. I'm a known trackpad hater. I never use them on the Steam Deck, not even in desktop mode. I actually think that they're kind of bad in desktop mode. I'd rather just touch the screen. I think they do take up kind of a lot of space on the Steam Deck. And I know that people love the trackpads. Believe me, I've tried to love the trackpads. I have a video called I Was Wrong About the Steam Deck Trackpads. In this video, I took your advice and dove into the world of Steam input layouts. I found some user-created ones that were easy to set up, and some of them were genuinely useful. And they're pretty cool to see. Rainbow Six 3 controls way better using the trackpad as a radial menu for commands or weapons and equipment or whatever. Emulation is made way better with things like the fast forward, quick save, and quick load mapped to a radial menu using the trackpad. It's genuinely impressive what these trackpads are capable of. Then, after I made that video, I never used the trackpad again. It's like I was brainwashed into liking the trackpads. What I used them for was genuinely cool. I just really didn't find a need for them after the fact. And then years later, I got this controller and I've been brainwashed into liking the trackpads again, but not for games. Forget that. You see, when you first plug this controller into a computer, it thinks it's a mouse and keyboard. There is no X input mode. It is not a controller until you open Steam. Then using Steam input, it's automatically configured into being a controller. That on its surface sounds pretty stupid. X input is old by now, but it is a universal controller language. It just works with everything. Why not have that on here? Think about this, though. Imagine you just picked up your controller and you want to get into the game. What am I supposed to do here? How am I going to get over to the game I want to play? I would have to get back up off the couch, walk over to the computer, and plug in a mouse and keyboard just to get over to booting up Steam or whatever game I want to play. With the Steam controller, I just have to mouse over Steam. And now here I am. I'm in Steam. And that's it. This is such a stupidly simple use case, but it happens every single time I try to play a game on PC. Or even a PC handheld. Sure, you can get around this by having a launcher like Xbox mode or Steam Big Picture mode. You can have that open by default on your computer so you don't have to manually launch into them. But not all of my devices are set up to do that. I don't always want to turn on my computer and launch into the game mode. I have to launch into them, then put down my mouse and pick up my controller. Even if you do have a launcher or a controller mode or whatever, you and I both know that you're gonna need to get into that Windows desktop eventually. On Windows, I am constantly tabbing over to the Windows desktop to like download something, update a driver, or just tab over because the window minimized for some reason or whatever. There's always an issue. And you know what? Besides the trackpads, this is also just a great controller. It's $100, which is close to the high end. I've reviewed a lot of controllers that range from the cheap to the insanely expensive. $100 is just above what most first-party controllers cost, and it's kind of really not in that premium territory in terms of feel. I think that the value this thing brings is that this is now the new universal PC game controller, if the games that you want to play are on Steam. Almost my entire PC game library is through Steam, so it's not a problem for me at all. If you intend on using this with a Windows device or anything with SteamOS on it, this is close to perfect. It might just be the new gold standard PC gaming controller, flaws and all. This video is sponsored by Surfshark. I'm telling you, every time you guys make soprasada, it's too spicy for my little tummy. And I'm watching you use Copilot. I thought you were a liberal. I got a recipe right here. You should be using this recipe. See? It's from a .it website. That means it's from Italia. That's Italian for Italia. Want to know how I got it? They know how I got it. VPNs like Surfshark encrypt your data so that nobody in your network can see what you're doing, whether you're on public Wi-Fi, at the office, or at home. With Surfshark's cybersecurity features, you can feel safe using the internet wherever you are. People also use Surfshark to access content that might be blocked in their country, like this soprasada recipe we just made up for this ad. Guys, there's no risk to trying Surfshark, and they offer a free 30-day money-back guarantee. So go to surfshark.com/den and use code DEN for an extra 4 months of Surfshark VPN. Pay for one tool, protect all aspects of your online life. Ooh, mwah! That smells so good. But that's entirely too much crushed red pepper. Stop that. Stop adding crushed red pepper. You believe this, stew now? That means stupid. Anyway, so your TV's all hung up. Let me know if you need anything else. I'm gonna invoice you. I do take food as a tip. I'm just joshing. I'm not joshing. My name's Bob. I purchased one of these with my own money, and that pre-order process was kind of a nightmare. If you want to get one now, you have to wait for the next wave of reservations to show up. Hopefully that'll be a little smoother. 40 minutes before I pre-ordered one of these for myself, they offered me a review unit. So now I guess I bought Will a controller. Congratulations. Here you go. Aww. It feels good. The buttons and the plastic shell kind of feel exactly like how a Steam Deck does. It is a little cheap feeling. I like how everything is placed. It's all easy to reach for if you have big adult hands. If you have small hands, it might be a little much to reach for. I do love where the D-pad is, and it is a pretty good feeling D-pad. I do have a lot of side-scrolling Steam games, so this would be a nice controller for them. However, I did notice that I get a little tense playing these games, or when I get a little tense, my grip is very tight. And when my grip is tight, I end up pushing my knuckle against this little point right here. This only really happens to me when I'm using the D-pad. I guess my grip is configured in such a way where I press on that point. It's just a little bit uncomfortable. This is a nitpick. This is a review video. I like this controller. There's going to be a lot of those little nitpicks, so prepare yourself. The thumbsticks are in the PlayStation configuration, but they don't really feel like they're as far down as a PlayStation controller. They do feel a little far apart. The stick gate is a little plasticky. I would have liked to have seen a smooth ring around the stick gate like the Elite controller has, or a stick that doesn't touch the gate at all, like the Switch 2 Pro controller. It's not grinding like the Switch 1 Pro controller does. That one had a lot of white dust around the thumbstick. This one does have some marks, but I'd say it's just about average as far as thumbsticks goes. It is a TMR thumbstick, which makes people go, wow, no more drift. I have 1 billion controllers and have never had any of them drift, except for a PlayStation 2 controller back when I was like 16 and I left it upside down overnight. You want to come back up? And all right, okay. He doesn't know what he wants either. It has all the same buttons that a Steam Deck has, including the Steam button, the 3 dots button, the 4 buttons on the back, which are in a pretty good spot. I never configure these to anything, though. There's the touch pads, and there's also grip sense. Grip sense senses when you are gripping the controller, so you can let go of one side and it will activate a button press if you set it up that way. You can adjust the sensitivity or how much you need to let go for a button press to trigger. I cannot think of a single use case for this other than just pausing the game. The game can pause when you put down the controller in case there's an emergency and you just can't bear to see another death come up in your Resident Evil playthrough. Oh, jealous now, huh? All right, everybody comfortable? It's like having 2 space heaters. I am sweating. My chat was begging me to watch Retro Game Core's video where he used grip sense to pull up the map in Ori and the Will of the Wisps. That's cool, but there is also just the select button. It's right there. I guess pulling up the menu is essentially just pausing the game. I tried to use grip sense for gyro. Oh yeah, there's gyro in this controller. Using grip sense to activate the gyro isn't really a good use case because you kind of let go of the controller when you activate it. Even if you change the sensitivity, you're still changing your grip and you still got to use the controller. Valve in one of their videos has grip sense set to reset the camera, which is a cool idea. So if you're like this, you can kind of reset it. It is better for if you're using mouse controls and not joystick controls for the gyro. But I want to use controls. So that's where I'm at. Oh my God. Make up your mind. Gyro is actually a really cool feature. I activate it with an R2 press, like I'm aiming down the sights, and I use it for very slight precision aiming. I was using this in Resident Evil 9. It took me a lot of finagling to get the sensitivity just right. These are the settings that I landed on. This controller's gyro is not as intricate as a Joy-Con or Pro controller. It does not handle subtle movements all that well. But if you're not sniping, it's workable. Marvel Rivals is a good example where precision aiming isn't really all that necessary most of the time. But it's still nice to be able to adjust your aim with the controller. Gyro is something that the Xbox controller, or X input, which is like the default Windows controller configuration, they do not have gyro. And they also do not have a trackpad or any sort of mouse mode at all. Windows 11 is getting a mouse mode, doesn't have it yet. This already has a whole ass trackpad. Actually, it's got two of them. It also comes with a 2.4 gigahertz dongle that doubles as a magnetic charger. I love dongles. They're faster than Bluetooth and way easier to sync. They just work. This also has Bluetooth. I've been leaving Bluetooth synced up to my laptop so I don't have to plug anything into that. And I leave the dongle plugged into my living room PC. To switch between Bluetooth and dongle modes, you have to hold the Steam button R1 and B for Bluetooth and the Steam button R1 and A for dongle. You have to do this while the device is turning on. You can't just hold it here. It doesn't do anything. You have to do it from the off state. I found this by Googling how to enable Bluetooth on a Steam controller. And when you do that, the search results are populated with the Steam controller from 2015. That's what you get for being an early adopter. The dockable dongle is a really nice touch. My favorite third-party controllers, the 8-Bit Dupe Pro 3 and the Ultimate controllers, both have charging stands that double as 2.4 gigahertz dongles. It's, again, a really simple detail that really elevates the user experience. When you first plug the controller into a computer, it has to update. It updates both the dongle and the controller itself. This hung up for me the first time I did it, and after a reboot of the controller, it worked just fine. Do not turn off your controller in the middle of a firmware update unless it takes like a really, really long time. Wait like a long time before you reboot it. This firmware update triggered on every single device that I plugged this into. It never stopped updating until today when I plugged it into this PC right behind me. So I think they fixed it. I think this is going to be a lot like the launch of the Steam Deck, where it launched with a bunch of bugs and they very quickly fixed all of those bugs. They seem to be really on top of things. While we're talking about bugs, I might as well mention that when I did plug it into this living room PC and I launched a game, I lost control of the mouse trackpad and I couldn't get it back. The Steam button was not working, so I had to plug in an actual mouse and keyboard, which is what I've been trying to avoid this whole time with this controller. Turns out I had to change this setting in the controller setting. It was on, I must have turned it on previously when I was using some other controller. And it just carried over to the Steam controller. And it kind of messed up the whole purpose of the Steam controller. In games and in Steam Big Picture mode, the right trackpad defaults to working like a right stick for some reason. And this kind of messes things up if you Alt-Tab out of Steam Big Picture mode. But to reactivate or toggle on the mouse mode, even while you're in Big Picture mode, you can just hold the Steam button like a shift key and move the trackpad around. That's very useful. I have to use that a lot. So this controller only works with Steam input. If you want to use this controller, you have to launch your game through Steam. Steam input does have a lot of insanely deep customization options. That's why people love this controller so much. All those customizations extend over to the trackpads. The trackpads are perfect for adapting controls for games that otherwise wouldn't have controller support. Some people are using this for something like WoW. Sure, you can map each ability to a button press, but every once in a while, you're going to want to use the mouse for something like a menu, because the game expects you to have a mouse. So it's nice having all of these functions readily available to you. I used it for Rainbow Six 3 because it's like the only game that I can think of that I'd want to play that doesn't have controller support. And I played it in my previous video about the trackpads. You can get real crazy mapping all sorts of different functions to the trackpads. It honestly takes a ton of work to do some of this stuff. Luckily, every game has community layouts. This is huge and often very overlooked. I feel like I'm the only one talking about the community layouts. I was using this particular one for Rainbow Six 3. It maps your team commands to the left trackpad and just a regular old radio menu for your weapons and equipment to the right trackpad. And you don't have to stick with this layout. You can further customize any of the controls if you don't like them exactly how they are in this layout. DS and Wii games are good to have trackpads for because it's nice to have a cursor. For Wii games, you're going to want to go into the Dolphin settings and just check this box right here so the controller doesn't try to act like a GameCube controller when you're playing a Wii game. That way, the controller and the trackpad are the same controller. Now, you can use the controller and have a fully functional cursor if you need it. Emulation, I think, is my favorite use case for the trackpads when it comes to actually playing a game. There are community layouts for just Emulation Station. I just use the most popular one, which is this one. It gives you a radial menu for every emulator that you can think of. And inside of each emulator, you'll find actions like fast forward, rewind, quick load, quick save, and a bunch of other stuff that isn't really that important. Those are functions that I would often reach for my keyboard for. Now, I don't have to do that. I didn't even have to go through the trouble of setting all of this up. Somebody else did. I just selected it from the community layouts, and that's it. Thank you very much. People were pointing out to me that they have all of their ROMs laying out in Steam already as individual games. I don't like to do that because I have so many ROMs. If you do have them as individual games within Steam, you can have different controller configurations for each game, and each one of those have their own community layouts. I just like having everything within Emulation Station. Don't forget, you can also just change the controller template that you're using. You can have different controller layouts saved for the one game, Emulation Station. So I like the way this layout is in Emulation Station. There are options for how these radial menus can work, though. You can tweak it a little bit. You can set each function as a press or a release. Only press worked for me, and it doesn't feel very good. You have to really press, and if you're forcing it, it's really easy to accidentally double press or press the wrong thing or something. I like it to be like you touch the touchpad and you swipe over to the one that you want, but I couldn't quite get that to work the way I would have liked. So, given how this works out of the box and how this has all these features that are clearly geared towards PC gaming, I think this is the best PC controller you can get right now, if most of the games that you want to play are already in Steam. Most likely, they already are. If there's games that you want to play that are not in Steam, you can just add them as a non-Steam game and play them using Steam input. That will enable this controller to do whatever you want. But I would understand if you don't want to go through that and you just want to keep using your Xbox controller. That's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Is this that much better than just an Xbox controller? Kind of. It should be really embarrassing for Microsoft that Valve is figuring out how to navigate their desktop better than they can. But in terms of game compatibility, the Xbox controller is kind of just fine. If you have one of those that you like, just stick with that, unless you want to adapt some games that don't have controller support. The Steam controller is great for that. If you want to get into some tinkering or just use community layouts and start from there, have at it with the Steam controller. That's what it's for, and that's what it's great at. I use this controller on a million different things. My desktop PC, my living room PC, a Steam Deck, a Steam OS, Lenovo Legion Go S, and it works basically exactly the same on all of those things. Even the gyro across Linux and Windows worked the same, which I was surprised by, because it's not like that on the Lenovo Legion Go S. Windows and Linux have different gyro functionality for some reason. I will say, though, SteamOS requires less trackpad usage. If you're using SteamOS, you might be just fine with an Xbox controller until you then have to go into the desktop mode. Windows, it's kind of unavoidable to access the desktop way more frequently. Most of the crazy features you see people talking about with the trackpads or with this controller in general, they're usually from people who go crazy with the configurations. It's pretty cool to see what people can do, and having all of these options is a great thing to see. But I do know that most people don't want to mess around with all of these different options. They just want things to work when they want to use them. They might get overwhelmed by seeing all of these different controller menus. And that's okay too. You don't have to do all of this stuff. There's just a lot of options. By default, this thing kind of works just fine right out of the box. You just have to open up Steam if you want to play your games, and that's it. You can just use the default layout or pull a community one. That's easy enough. If you already have a controller that you like and the trackpads aren't enticing you enough, you're probably just fine with that controller. You can still use Steam input with a different controller. If you don't have a controller at all, this might be my biggest recommendation if you're playing on PC or a docked Steam Decks or a Linux-based whatever you have. Whatever it is that has Steam on it. They really did a really good job here. I had this in my notes, but I couldn't fit it anywhere. When I'm on the couch, that's the only time this felt big for some reason. Like when I'm playing in bed, I could play like this, I could play like this. But when I was on the couch, for some reason, these feel really far away. I don't know why. Anyway, what do you guys think about the Steam controller? Did you get one? Are you waiting for yours? There's a lot of people still waiting for theirs. I will say they told me 5 to 7 business days, and it came in 2. I know this video's a little late. Everyone else made their videos already, but it took me. I got mine late. Leave me alone. What do you want me to do? Leave in the comments below. Add me on Twitter, any and all this other social media garbage. What do you use for, and what should I be using mine for? Thank you to people on twitch.tv/wolfden for helping me figure this thing out and giving me some ideas to put in this video. Also, we have a podcast, youtube.com/wolfden podcast. If you can't make it to the live streams, that's fine. We got podcasts. The most important thing you can do to help support this channel is just subscribe right here. I got so many things to make videos on this week. So there's going to be another one very soon. And share this video with a friend who is playing games on PC and needs a controller, or is maybe on the fence about a controller like this for one reason or another, or is maybe talking the trackpads. Thank you very much. Have yourself a very good week.